All right, it's really good to be here. I don't know about you, but it feels like, as I sort of talk to people at the event, it feels like we're all sort of scrambling around a little bit to understand the world, how it's changing, how we react to that, how we find our way through these unusual times that we found ourselves in. And what we'd really like to do this morning is to open up a way that ADP like to collaborate with our clients. And that's through something we call the Global Client Advisory Board. And I'm pleased to have three, I don't know how to describe it, I feel like you're friends, but colleagues on stage, and we're going to have a chat amongst ourselves. I think in some ways we've said, this is the sort of thing we'd be really comfortable, having a coffee table chat and having this conversation. So try and imagine you're sitting at a coffee table downstairs and earwigging on our conversation. That's the way that the way you'd like to take it. So firstly, I'm going to introduce you all. So Jennifer, could you introduce yourself? Actually?
Sure, yes. Hi, Jennifer Green. I'm Senior Director of Global Payroll for Otis.
And Mark?
Absolutely. Mark Fafard, I'm Head of Business Services Strategy for Raytheon Technologies.
And Gary?
And Gary O'Connor. I'm a EMEA Payroll Director at Dell Technologies.
Okay. And as I said, the Client Advisory Board is really a forum where we get people together, and it's first and foremost, it's about listening. It's about listening to our clients and understanding how their worlds are changing and how we need to adapt and respond to that. But it's also about using it as a sounding board as well. So we have the opportunity to say, well, we're thinking of this, we're thinking of that, really understanding what their response is to that. So we're going to try and open up that Komodo a little bit today. And Jennifer, if I can start with you. You've been on a pretty interesting journey. So you've been part of, I think it's United Technologies has split into Otis, and Mark, you're at Raytheon, so we can get into this. Could you start by telling us about your journey and how that's been for your team?
Sure, Jeff, thank you. So UTC, United Technologies, was into our 6th year of global transformation for payroll and HR. And we had a well-thought-out strategy. We were implementing GlobalView, integrating fully with HCM. We were design partners with ADP on the Peachy connector. Things were going smoothly. We were developing our shared service hubs globally. We were in most countries and moving along well. And then our company, UTC, decided to split. So we took our large organization and we split it into 3. So our focus immediately changed from building what we were building together, and I'm pointing to Mark because Mark hired me and brought me in to work on global payroll. And now we had to focus on dismantling everything we had completed over those 6 years, separating our systems, working through ADP's support, terrific support through that process to create 3 instances of all of our systems. And for Otis, that also meant a shift in our strategy to focus on our 77 countries, develop a new global strategy for implementing and shared service. And I know Mark and I were very closely tied to that. What was that like for you, Mark?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think it was a very similar journey, but it was interesting that it was so collaborative. And I think to go from start to finish in roughly 9 months was only really possible because of the work that we had done before, and really with ADP and together implementing that global solution. One of the things that I thought was probably most interesting on the innovation front as we went through that journey is we were challenged by our leadership at the time to rethink how we manage equity compensation in a structure that incentivized all of our leaders to focus on really the benefit of all 3 companies coming out of the spin, rather than just the company that they spun with. And so it's something we partnered on with ADP and all of the stakeholders in that process, and had a much broader impact, I would think, than just than what we normally would have had in that spin. Coming out of that 9-month spin, we then pivoted and immediately started down a path to merge UTC Aerospace with Raytheon, which we did over about 18 months to fully integrate our global solutions and really become who we are today as Raytheon Technologies. So Gary, I know you're on the back end of quite an impressive merger, so do you want to maybe share a little bit about?
Yeah, so in kind of contrast to UTC, we've been kind of stitching things together at Dell for the last 6 years. So just for a bit of context, Dell and EMC came together just over 6 years ago. So as you can imagine, two large multinationals, owned systems, owned processes, everything came together. We had, in most cases, two of everything. So two HCMs. In the payroll case, we had multiple platforms, multiple processes, multiple vendors. So for the last 6 years, we've been on that journey of, I guess, coordinating, consolidating, and kind of simplifying that. So from things like our payroll calendars, to our processes, to platforms, systems as well. So the latest kind of phase of that has been an implementation of Celergo with ADP. So for the last 16 months, we have been implementing Celergo across 25 countries in EMEA and APJ. So we've done 22 of those. We have 3 to go. The last of those will go live in March of this year. So, you know, a bit of a frantic sprint over the last 16 months. It's had its bumps and it's had its kind of, you know, challenges as well. But I think, as the guys allude to, you know, it's a partnership with ADP that we've got over those bumps together. And we're not done, because the next phase of that now is our integrations. We want to integrate Workday into Celergo and leverage all of the technology there. And Tanya mentioned that there before the break. We don't want our team members, you know, crunching in data and setting up comp changes, whatever. We want to use the integrations, use the technology, and have our team members kind of add value to our processes as well. So.
And I can share an experience with that. So as we became independent Otis, we had many, many small local payroll systems. We were Workday in every country, but disparate systems everywhere. And we actually attempted to integrate Workday with our local systems, and we spent a lot of time, a lot of money, too much effort doing that, and we have now changed our strategy and are moving towards Celergo. We've implemented Celergo in 14 countries, so in total we have ADP in 36 countries, fully connected, using the Peachy integration, so I would highly recommend that.
Yeah. So, because again, it kind of ties back, you know, so part of the reason for choosing Celergo, and, you know, obviously it's an existing partnership, an existing relationship, but bringing those 25 countries on Celergo, you know, and lining them up with our 20 existing global view countries meant that we could leverage technologies and service offerings from ADP, such as ADP Insights. So we started on the journey with ADP a number of years ago for the Insights portal, and again, Tanya articulates the benefits of that much better than I will, but you know, our goal for that is to bring all of those 45 countries together so that we can gain, and excuse the pun, more insightful data from our payroll. So either feeding our global leaders and, you know, the decisions made around workforce, but also feeding kind of our payroll strategy, because we want to gain more insight into how we're doing it, where we're doing it. And again, that comes back to the partnership, and I'd say even extend that to friendship with ADP, because, you know, and again, I think it was mentioned yesterday, it was mentioned at the CAB meeting on Tuesday, like, this is our journey, we're on it, but I think, and I mentioned this to someone over dinner last night, I get a perverse comfort from a forum like this, or from the CAB, that, you know, most of these people in this room are on a similar journey, just at different stages. And Virginia mentioned this yesterday as well, that we're all in different stages, but you learn from who's gone before you, and you kind of give a hand, you know, a lending hand to those coming behind us as well. So again, part of the benefit of the CAB is, you know, we can learn from what you guys are doing as well, and you know, learn from either other people's mistakes or, you know, good decisions. So yeah.
So Jennifer, I mean, one of the things I think has come up, and certainly in the CAB and conversations here, is just the sort of balance between people trying to get to global standards versus specific country requirements. I just wondered what your journey had been like there.
Yeah, I think our end-to-end operations rely heavily on strong processes, strategic handoffs, and using the tools and technology to support the work. During spin, and we haven't really mentioned, but our spin was in 2020, so at the very beginning of the pandemic, we officially spun. That was our legal spin, April of 2020. So we had other challenges that we were dealing with as a business, the economic downturn, brought on by the pandemic. So for Otis, we were looking at ways to be more efficient, save money, and still provide the best support to our colleagues. And one pain point that we had in our largest location, which is China, we have over 17,000 employees, and our self-service wasn't working for password resets for GlobalView. So in all of our other countries, we were able to use SMS and really turn it into self-service. Didn't work for China. ADP brought us a solution to use WeChat, which is similar to SMS, but solved the need in China. So increased our colleague experience. Their ability to just go in and change their password was the key to making them happier. And through that, we were also to reduce our production support costs by about a little bit more than $400,000. But really, it was the employee experience that was the win there. And having the ADP partnership to help us find those solutions was critical at that point.
It's great to hear. And Mark, like, you and I share a common interest in automation, and we've been working together to, in your goal of taking automation end-to-end payroll automation. I know you wouldn't let me on stage without an opportunity to speak about that, because I know you're just so passionate about it. So maybe you could share with the audience here just your experiences and how that's going for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Jeff. I would be honored to. So I think one of the earlier experiences that I had in partnering with ADP, looking at end-to-end process, was when we were transforming our international assignment program with a heavy focus on compliance and experience as well, right? Really bringing that together. And I remember we were in ADP headquarters in a conference room drawing concepts on a whiteboard. And we went from a concept on a whiteboard to a multi-country payroll live in production, paying assignees in 25 countries, in 15 currencies, on one payroll with one bank file in about 9 months, which was really exciting. But one of the opportunities we're working on now in partnership with ADP is taking one of our countries, I'll say as a sample, and looking at the entire process. What are the steps that we execute as a client? What are the steps that ADP is executing as provider? And really blurring the lines between those roles to look holistically at those activities and process. And we've largely laid that flat. And what we're looking at now is, okay, where can we simplify that? Where can we then improve the process and leverage automation to make that more effective together? And it's interesting because I think the most powerful thing we've seen come out of this is us looking at it holistically versus ADP looking at their side of the process and us as a client looking at ours. I think those handoffs and connection points are where we're really seeing the value come forward. And it's exciting to hear, I think, throughout the conference, the continued focus on really looking upstream and integrations and kind of connecting that as a whole.
Oh, thank you. And you, Mark, you're always pushing us. You do it with a smile always, but you're always pushing us and looking for new things and looking over that horizon. And Gary, turning to you, you touched on that rollout with Celergo there. I'm just sort of curious about, Dell Technologies, that's a fascinating big business, and I should just confess to everybody that I'm an ex-Dell employee, so please look after, I'm still on the pension scheme, so please look after things there. But just wonder how the value that you've got from the Celergo rollout for the business.
Yeah, so I guess benefit kind of ties in with what Mark is saying as well about, and we've talked about this all through the week and CAB and Tuesday, it's consolidation and standardization, and we're all after this kind of holy grail of, global standards and one system and one payroll platform, etc. I guess we all identify one size does not fit all. So I guess the benefits for us from a Celergo point of view was taking those 25 countries, which was a mixture of streamlined payrolls and non-ADP payrolls, and getting them all onto one platform, and say me as a regional or global leader, I can see it all on one platform as to where things are. I get a view of where I need to focus my attention on. But equally, say for our payroll analyst, so the payroll analyst looking after payroll for Kazakhstan is effectively, in theory, doing the same work and to say using the same platform as the payroll analyst looking after Portugal, albeit with maybe tweaks for country specifics. But equally then, and again, the Celergo decision is influenced by our existing and long-standing relationship and I suppose our global view footprint across 20 other countries, because for those 45 countries, our team members, our end users, all access the ADP MyView portal for their payslip. So there's a consistency and a standard approach, and that consistency brings a bit of trust in our payroll department as well. So we give off the intent. We know what we're doing, so that's the intention.
All right. Just listening to the three of you here, I'm struck by, you've touched on timescales, and I know with other clients that I've worked for where there's been splits or acquisitions, you're often working under timescales that are completely outside of your control and are immovable. I once heard that there's a quote that says, to succeed you need a plan and not quite enough time. And I suspect that resonates with all three of you. I just wondered if any of you could just comment more on how you've dealt with those immovable timescales and just maybe achieve things that you thought at the beginning, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. I don't know if any of you, Mark, I'm looking at you.
No, I'd be happy to. I'd say I don't think it's ever comfortable lining those two up, and I think it's either it causes, I'll say failure, right, where it's not achievable, or it actually accelerates the progress. For us, when we were going through the spin, I remember looking at our organization, the people, and trying to figure out how do we take this hunk of brie and split it into 3 slices of Swiss cheese, right? Where it's still effective, it's still supportive with what we have, and how do we fill in those holes? And we had looked at our org as a whole, and we were in a country model. We had country teams, and we used it as an opportunity to take those country teams that were aligned with each one of the businesses and where they had footprint and strategic presence, and we made those regional hubs. So we actually used that to accelerate that progress. Absent that, I don't think it would have been possible within 9 months. We would have had a massive transition services agreement. The activities would have bled over, and for us, we wouldn't have been able to become who we are today in the timeline that we did to merge UTC Aerospace with Raytheon immediately following that. So.
Okay. All right. Gary or Jennifer, any other thoughts on advice to people when you're in the timescale is out of your hands?
I think the payroll is always so critical, and I know during our spin experience, there's so many more pieces of the spin that didn't impact us at all, finance and other areas. But the question that I most frequently received from my CEO was, are people going to be paid correctly?
Right, yeah.
So anyone in payroll is in that cyclical.
We're used to it, in other words. Right?
Yes,
yeah.
we're used to it. And so the question, are you going to pay people correctly? And the answer is yes. And how we get there sometimes is a little bit crazy, but we do get there, and everyone was paid on time across all 3 of our organizations, and no major issues. So.
I think it just add to that. I think either with the ADP partnership or even internal, the changes we all kind of go through it. I think it's a team of this forum this past week. It's the communication. So speaking with ADP, making sure that they're aware of our expectations and vice versa, but also internally with our HR departments, with our finance departments, and ultimately, we all want to pay people on time. But if that's at risk, we found communicate it. Let people know it won't be Friday. It might be Monday. So again, communication being the team, I guess, is what we'd add to it. Yeah.
And what about, we talked about being part of the CAB. What benefits, and we've had a CAB meeting this week, so what benefits have you got out of that we haven't touched on?
Yeah,
Gary, do you want to?
Yeah, I checked that one. I think I mentioned it. I think there's a comfort in knowing that everybody else is on a similar journey. And I think the benefits of the CAB bring that kind of forum together so that you can share, say, best practice or share, questions and learnings from your journey, so to speak. So I think being able to speak with, industry peers, and even a forum like this, and the sidebar conversations we have over dinner, I personally get a lot from that, and I kind of comfort knowing I'm not the only one feeling a bit of pain, or I'm under pressure, or we're all in this journey together, albeit at different stages. So yeah.
Jennifer?
I would agree. I think having an opportunity to meet people who are very much in the same space, some are further ahead, some are maybe a little bit behind, but being able to talk about the challenges, the solutions, how we can work together, share ideas, and come out better, I think that it's tremendous.
All right, okay. And Mark, is there anything you would add to that?
Yeah, no, I would echo it as well. I think the ability to come together with other companies and hear those challenges as well as ideas. I mean, there's things, the challenges we've had where we had no idea how we were going to accomplish it, and it was coming out of those CAB meetings, and again, dinner conversations here that really, okay, we found other people that had done it, here's how they solved it, and we were able to embrace that and go through it more effectively and quickly.
And I've heard you helping others as well, so that's fabulous to see. So I'm going to do a bit of an experiment here, and we're going to do a sort of mini CAB Live thing, and building on what Sebastian said yesterday. So I'm going to ask you all to just think about a goal, hopefully a quick goal that you could either set us jointly or set ADP. And if you say it out loud, I think that's a 42% chance, or more likely chance it'll happen. So Gary, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, I think we spoke briefly about this on Tuesday at the CAB as well. I think that the communication between ADP teams of understanding the client, understanding our needs, and bringing forward kind of best practice to us in terms of, okay, here's the Celergo platform, but here's how we think you should use it. You guys are the experts. We rely on you for that detailed information. So if you can bring that to us and say, yeah, we've brought you to this point, but here's how you go do it. Here's how you implement. And this is based on learnings we have from UTC, learnings we have from whomever. So, yeah.
All right, expertise. Yeah. Thank you. Mark?
So I would say, and I'm going to play off that a little bit. I like that. I would say also going back to the CAB conversation, continue to push the boundaries on looking upstream in the process and looking within your clients to focus on innovation and enablement and automation, which is, I think, consistent with a lot of the themes we've heard here. And I'll say specifically enabling ADP automations to coexist with client automations so that it plays effectively together. I think that's key.
Okay, all right. Thank you. And Jennifer?
I would say the goal is global consistency. So the more efficient we can become, we need ADP to be consistent by region as well, so that service delivery is the same everywhere, at least as similar as can be, which then enables a more robust shared service in the right places for us, and gives us the ability to provide excellent service, but at a reduced cost. And meeting clients where we are as well, and understanding what our needs are.
Okay, I love that. There's a global consistency there. It's a nice one to finish on, and important to all of us in the room. I think that, so I feel energized by all of those three. I might text them to Maria later, so that will make them 95% likely to happen, all right? Okay.
Make it happen.
Just
Make
use
it happen,
the stats
Jeff.
there. Just in sort of really closing up, and maybe if I can share something personal, I find these conversations incredibly helpful. I have a few wristbands on, and one of them is the wristband from Rethink from last year. And the reason I decided to keep that on was I found the conversations that were so powerful that I wanted a constant reminder, and to remind me of those conversations and to remind me of the commitments that we were making there. And one of the things that got discussed at the CAB last year was being able to, I was asked to open up Global View in Israel. And so I had the wristband on when that question was asked, and I had the wristband on last week when we were in Jerusalem getting ready to launch our sort of first client, get ready on our first implementation. So that's a sort of, Marcus talked about the red threads yesterday, but that was really, just being personal, that was a real kind of red thread moment for me. But from the CAB perspective, what I would really say is that these conversations, they really live with us. The conversation I had last night from the lovely lady from Argentina who said, Jeff, you're fantastic at compliance, but we really need to talk about union agreements in Argentina, will live with me. The conversation from the person who shall be nameless, but said to me, gave me a very clear requirement and said, if you can deliver that, then I can retire happy, was certainly a challenge that we're happy to accept. So these conversations, I really want to impart, these conversations, they energize us, they refocus us from a purpose point of view. And when we then go on and deliver them, when we turn them into reality, they're our red threads. They're the moments that really make us excited because we're making a difference. We're moving from a requirement where we maybe don't know how we're going to get there, echoing some of your experiences, we're turning that into a reality that we can all be pleased about and then go again. So I want to thank all three of you for your comments today. I want to thank everybody in the audience for your conversations while you've been with us, and really just to say thank you for continuing to be our North Star. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.